it was in really, really, really tough shape, as they all are.
Yeah.
And the house had, a small, well, our winters up here are pretty fierce, as you can imagine. And it's a huge fear up here every single winter that pipes freeze. And if they're not taken care of, they explode, and then they leak when they start to melt. So this one had a nice little master main plumbing valve leak that no one caught for about 10 weeks. So it filled up the basement. It filled up partially on the first floor. And once it got warm, and once the warm came, lots and lots of really cool colors of mold grew like all throughout the entire property.
Welcome to the BiggerPockets Best Deal Ever show. I'm your lovable host, Ken Corsini, who with my wife, Anita, have flipped over 800 houses in Atlanta since 2005 and even have a show on HGTV. But this show isn't about us. It's about all the amazing real estate investors out there that are crushing it. It's about their stories, their best deals, how they sourced them, how they funded them, and what we can learn from their experiences. This is the Best Deal Ever show. Welcome to the Best Deal Ever show. I am joined by my good friend, Nick Aalerud. Nick, how you doing, man?
I am doing awesome, Ken. Thanks for having me, man.
Good. I love the accent. Boston, right?
I don't have an accent. I won't drop any F-bombs, I promise. It's all right.
Exactly.
No cars.
No cars. I guess if you haven't noticed, Nick's from Boston, right?
Best sports teams in the world, right here. Sorry, I know I don't make any friends. That's all right.
You're like the exact opposite of Atlanta too. Like we can't freaking win championships to save our life, and you guys just keep falling into championships.
Man, you came real close though, real close. So
it's the story of our life. I mean, like the Braves for how many years, and like the Falcons are. I mean, we have these great teams, they just can't freaking win like the championship. It's so frustrating.
Oh man,
you don't know what that's like though. You don't even know. You can't relate.
Been a while.
Yeah, exactly. So you're in the Boston market, and so tell us what's your model? How long you guys been doing it?
Awesome. Yeah, we're primarily fix and flip. We have a wholesale business, fix and flip business. We have a real estate sales and brokerage company. We have a property management business, and we even have a debt settlement, like a short sale negotiation firm up here. So been in business since 2005.
Oh, wow.
Didn't really know about the market cycles when I first jumped in 2005. Yeah. So, I mean, my story is kind of all over my websites and stuff. I had a very hard start in 2005 where I lost 5 houses, my first 5 deals. Ooh. So, since then, man, just been, got my systems together, got my rules together. We've been cranking ever since,
Wow. That's funny.
We try to help over 100 sellers a year.
Is that typically what you guys end up flipping? It's about 100?
We try, depending on rehab and wholesales. Yes. Yeah. That's our target.
I gotcha. It's funny. I actually, just like you, I got in the business in 2005 as well. And it's funny. You have no clue about market cycles, and everything was so positive and optimistic in 2005. And I did fine in 5 and 6. It was 7 and 8 that all of a sudden I was like, crap, what am I going to do? The world is crumbling around me. It sounds like you got your butt spanked as well as a lot of us did.
I did indeed. But it helped, it helped you teach you everything, right? I learned the hard way, and it's been helpful ever since. So
yeah, you're smart. So you guys also have property management. So were you guys ever selling turnkey or anything like that?
No, never. We've been managing our own property since 2009, but this literally we never launched publicly till January of this past year. So just kind of doing our own properties, and finally decided we had our crap together enough to manage for other people too. So it's been good. We fresh look, similar to what you guys do. It's like total 5-star client centric. We're like, it's all about customer service. It's not really like landlord versus tenant. It's like, how can we help? You're our customers. What can we do for you?
Yeah.
It's kind of neat. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's a tricky business to be in, but I mean, if you've been doing it for yourself, you get your systems, in order, then at some point it makes sense. Start doing it for other folks.
Right.
Very cool. Hey, so what is the market like in Boston? I mean, I know it's expensive. I was up there a couple of years ago, and I remember looking on Zillow like, holy cow, how does anybody afford to live up here? What's it like to fix and flip up there?
Oh man. It's very capital intensive for us, right? Yeah. So our average entry points are, we say between, it can go as low as 150, but between 150 and 500,000 are our entry points, our purchase prices. Yeah. Our resale values are anywhere from 400,000 up to 1.05 mil. If you're in Boston proper, we're just staying out of Boston proper, Somerville, Cambridge markets, because you're buying a 3-family right now for like 1.2, 1.3, and you're condoing them, and they're selling each condo for like 900, a million per condo. But it's with the regulations, the permit backups, it's insane. It's insane. It took us 18 months to get a permit just to do a 3-family renovation. It was just awful. So, yeah, it's bad. But outside of the burbs, like where we are in the north of Boston, yeah, that's our average. Between 300, 400 purchase price, and then we exit 550, 600,000.
Okay. I mean, that's still, though, compared to a lot of the rest of the country, that's top of the market. Like Atlanta, that's top of the market to be that high. I mean, you're flipping really, really nice houses at $400,000 or $500,000.
Where you are, they're really crappy houses here. So.
You're basically in the ghetto at 400,000.
That's right. Yes.
So Atlanta and a lot of the major metros, you're in neighborhoods that are transitioning, and so for us, a lot of times it's very street to street. Like this street, you don't want to be in this street, but the next street over is hot and happening. And is that what you're seeing? Is a lot of that sort of gentrification taking place?
Yeah, definitely. It's town by town here a lot, but yeah, if you're in a city, there's a bunch of cities up here that are north of Boston. Yeah. That is, like you just mentioned, street to street. And you got to know the city to know which street's desirable and what's not, right?
Yeah.
But gentrification for sure. A lot of condo development up here because there's not, a ton of land.
Yeah.
So they're taking single families, even oversized single families, and condoing them 2 and 3 and 4 units, and tons of triple deckers, old school triple deckers, quads that people are just condoing them all out, adding some parking and value add. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're taking the existing and just kind of rearranging the floor plan and making them standalone and metering them and whatnot.
That's it. Yeah.
And just
That's
a regular
big value add. Yeah, for the most part, as long as it's zoned for it. If it's zoned for the density, they'll do it. Yep.
Wow. I guess that's, I mean, up there, it's an old city, so it's not like they're not making new land up there. You got to work with what you got to work with.
That's exactly it. Yeah, for sure.
So you guys do a little bit of everything, it sounds like. You do some fix and flip. You do some wholesaling. What sort of percentage does that make up of your business?
This year, and I think we were late to the wagon on that one. I mean, we were like, wholesaling was only for extra leads. We want to rehab everything. Yeah. And this particular year, 2019, I hate to say, right, every buyer in the world who just took a course, we were competing with them on offers. And it's like, you know what? The only way to do it is if we have the lead gen, sell it to these guys. And a lot of them can still make tons of money, right? They're solopreneurs. They can do their own rehab. They're their own broker. They can get commissions. They don't have the overhead that we have. So we just started selling to them. We're about 90% wholesale right now and 10% rehab.
Wow. So, that's we're sort of the same. We're doing more wholesale this year as a percentage of our business than ever before. And I think it's just a function of kind of where we are in the market cycle too. I think some of us that have been around since 2005 are like, you know what? I think I'm going to hold on to just a little bit less and just going to see how things shake out.
Yeah.
Make a quick wholesale deal. And
for sure. It's it's all about capital, right? Liquidity.
Yeah.
And for us, especially, right, with their high price points, it gets tough around here, right? We've got a whole bunch of private lenders and investors, but still with those, you take on 15 or 20 of these deals where you're buying them at 300, 400,000 a piece. It's sometimes better just to let a bunch of those go,
Yeah.
So
that's very true. That's exactly right. So you, having done a ton of fix and flips, obviously some wholesale deals, and now you're in the property management side. Is there one deal over the last so many years that sticks out to you as like your best deal ever?
There is a best deal ever. And it's funny because I had to figure this out, right? Was it monetary, the best deal ever? Was it like, and I boiled it down to really like best deal ever with the lowest amount of risk and the highest dollar per hour, let's say.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
But that said, there was still a lot of hair on this one. So okay. I figured might be good to chat about it. Maybe it's good for a laugh for some people. Other people probably did way better than this, but we go for it. So
see, I don't think best deal necessarily has that much to do with profit. A lot of times it's a really cool deal. That's fun to talk about. So let's hear it. How'd you source this thing?
This one was really cool. So we sent it out like you, right? Bunch of direct mail. We have texting, we have voicemails, we have phone calls, direct mail. We do it all. This one was perfect because it came in as a referral, and it was a referral from one of our private lenders. So it was like, in every sense of the way, this was going to be like a sweet deal. So cost per lead is zero. And we started to kind of work with this wonderful, wonderful woman. She was a sweetheart. She was a family member of our private lender.
Okay.
And as it would turn out, her mother, who was in a nursing home, it was about to pass, had only lived in this house for years and years and years, and about 8 months ago was medically removed from the home. and no one had obviously taken care of it or been there ever since the 8 months ago. So
Wow.
it was in really, really, really tough shape, as they all are.
Yeah.
And the house had, a small, well, our winters up here are pretty fierce, as you can imagine, and it's a huge fear up here every single winter that pipes freeze, and if they're not taken care of, they explode, and then they leak when they start to melt. So this one had a nice little master main plumbing valve leak that no one caught for about 10 weeks. So it
Ooh.
filled up the basement, it filled up partially on the first floor. And once it got warm, and once the warm came, lots and lots of really cool colors of mold grew like all throughout the entire property. It's like we had some like hot yellows and bright oranges. It was like really cool. I haven't seen that stuff before. So
it's like Stranger Things down in the basement. All sorts of crazy things growing down there.
Yes.
So like it literally filled up the entire basement.
Filled up the entire basement, and my understanding is it hit first floor, so it was coming out the front door when they finally got it. So it's crazy.
Crazy. So
good one.
So did they? So I guess they were looking to sell it. They just wanted to dump the thing after that.
She called me just trying to work out some options. At this point, right? They wanted to do what was right by the family. They needed to make what they could on it, but at the same time, the house was in rough shape. The city was all over them on code violations. They were threatening to condemn the building, and meanwhile, what started happening was it was the first time I dealt with this. The city had a tax lien on it, but then Medicaid came and threw it was like a general lien on the property. Like, before you sell this property, give us a call, essentially is what it said.
Medicaid?
So that's what made this deal interesting, right?
Okay.
I have never, so basically she had, I guess, run out of assets, moved into assisted living or a nursing home or wherever she was. And because she still had this asset, her only asset left in the world, and she was obviously clearly destitute besides this asset, they had came and just said, hey, listen, we have rights to this asset. And they didn't put a lien on it with any dollar value like you usually see from like a mortgage perspective. They just said, give us a call. So we had to learn. We had a short sale company back then. We had to learn how to deal with Medicaid. And that was kind of advancing through the process a little bit, but it was cool. It was interesting.
I've never heard of Medicaid getting involved in a real estate transaction. That's very interesting.
It was super interesting. And then trying to just get the people on the phone. They need to get on the phone, right?
Yeah.
And just negotiating a number that no one really knew. And I didn't personally handle that part. We had our paralegal team in the short sale company handle that. But it was just like we had to get them as a lien release, and I think at the end of the day, they got, I might be quoting that wrong. I think they ended up getting like $90,000 of the $145,000 purchase price. So they took a lot. They took a big piece of it.
So you bought it for $145,000 and they got 90 of that.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Yeah.
I guess
they got
you
a big
had
piece.
Past due medical bills. Is that it? That were owed to Medicaid? How does that work?
I think Medicaid kicks in right when we have no assets left. And I think because she still had this asset, they were trying to recoup some of the money they had already fronted and paid for all of her medical care and ultimately the nursing home. So I think they just needed something back.
Yeah.
From that.
Crazy. That's not so. The family, unfortunately, only got $55,000 out of the whole thing, or net.
That was it. And between you and me, because obviously between you and me and anybody else watching, your small audience.
That's right.
But yeah, we did, try to take care of them as well with like personal property sale. We tried it. They were a friend of the family and they had nothing.
Yeah.
So we did what was right at the end of the day, especially, as we went through this deal, and I'll go through like kind of what happened, but we ended up doing okay. Yeah. So we helped them out with a piece of that too. So
what did the rehab look like for you guys? What did that entail?
So that was it. So we had to do a cost benefit analysis between a fix and flip or straight up, even though it was a nice cape. If you guys see, the YouTube video, nice cape, like beautiful house. We could have renovated it. I really feel like we could have, but it was just the structural in the basement. Like it was too far gone. Yeah. So we had to weigh the tear down and rebuild complete with new construction. And that neighborhood was a very nice neighborhood. So it would have supported the resale value.
Yeah.
Versus just the reno and quick fix and flip. Wow. And that was what we ended up going around here. and this is I think a couple years back, but around here it's still our cost per square foot to build is anywhere between like $120 to $145 a square foot. And if you're in the city, forget it. You're at $300 a square foot to build if you're in the Boston property. So talking a lot, but that was kind of the analysis is like, do we spend, do we tear this thing down, 10 grand to tear it down, fill in a pool in the back and rebuild for $125 a square foot to then hopefully resell a nice 2,800 square foot colonial, for the 700, 725 mark.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the direction that we started to head. We started to head down that direction. And we were met with a bunch more resistance from the town, which I'll get into when we get to that point. So.
Oh, they didn't want you guys to, though, honestly, for, a lot price of 145 with a resale of mid sevens, that sort of fleshes out. That's, that's pretty typical for a lot price per sale price.
Yeah. It was going to be a good spot too. But as we went through, the neighbors all banded together. It's a small town, and small towns up here. I think a small town in Atlanta is the same as a small town here in Boston, right? They all band together, and there's an evil developer coming into this neighborhood, and we need to stop them at all costs. In fact, we should, why can't a nice family buy these things and just, put in for 300,000 themselves and better this place? But that's
what were you guys looking at for a reno? I mean, obviously. Or were you looking at taking? I mean, were the studs, the foundations even viable, or would you?
That's what happened. So that's what happened. The foundation itself was ultimately compromised. It was a block foundation, and the water had been there. It froze and unfroze and froze, and it started cracking all the way through. You could see the daylight through, like it was just that was the hardest part.
Yeah.
So we ultimately made that call.
So ended up scraping it, and then what did that look like? Was permitting just a nightmare then for you guys to scrape and build? I mean, it's bad in Atlanta. I can't even imagine what it's like up there.
Again, I haven't touched Boston yet, but this wasn't even close to how bad it is in Boston proper.
Yeah.
But we went to the town first, as we normally do, and we play nice and play dumb, right? Like, hey, just looking to see if we can do this, and what's the process, and how can we go about it? And they first came back and said, well, no matter what, you have to go through zoning, right? Because everything up here we go through zoning for. Because every time you touch anything with all of our old lots, and they're all tiny, and the houses are all like monstrous because they were built in 1800s, right? Yeah. This one was only built in 1960, and I'll get to that in a second. But even still, setbacks and frontages and lot sizes, and you always have to go through zoning for everything.
I got you.
Started to go through the zoning process when they kicked back and they said, hey, listen, I think this might be on the historical register.
Oh yeah.
So you might want to check with the historical commission. I was like, 1960s Cape? How is this possibly on the historical? So and every single house in the same neighborhood was like the same thing. So went to the historical, and that was really the where the show began. The comedy show, as I call it, right?
Really?
So I'm happy even going public now with this, because like these guys in this particular town, it was they were worse than Boston zoning. They were worse than like I've been in litigation, right? Like these guys, there was 7 of these people, men and women, and they had ultimate power and authority that they wanted to exercise over every single renovation project in town or every single development project in town. Yeah. And it took 3 months back and forth with the head of this commission, and he only had authority to just say if it's historical or not, and if it is, then he could either, we'd wait out 12 months for the historical, I don't know if it's like moratorium or something to pass, or we have to do what they want us to do, which is what colors, what are you doing to the outside? Let's go look at your architecturals. And the line, and I quoted this line in my blog, right? I remember at the ultimate time, he gave me these plans that he thought would be more suitable on the property versus our 2,800 square foot colonial that made financial sense and also looked just like the house right next door. Yeah. He starts passing me these, 1940s ranches. It's like, oh, this is much more appropriate. And they have like the, roosters on the roof. These aren't like designs. Like he's just showing me pictures of houses that this gentleman likes, who's, 86 years old. And I was being very polite. I was being super polite. I had my attorney with me. I had my engineer with me. And I remember the final night came, we were at the table, and there's, it's a tiny little room in a library, and there's these 7 or 8 individuals, me, and like the line of 50 people out the door, because they have jurisdiction over every house in town. And the guy, the head, bangs on the table, and he says, I have given you several designs that, meet we feel is in the character and building of this neighborhood. And I was like, with all due respect, sir, they don't build those anymore. And if they do, it's not cost effective. And then he says, and he bangs, he says, I told you about the golden rule of building homes, because he likes to educate me, right? 85 years old. He and I were on the phone every week. It's like, I educated you from what you're supposed to be doing in your business and how you should grow, you should be building your business. And I told you about the golden rule of living area and square footage. And let me tell you this, sir. And this is now on the TV cameras are on this guy, right? And he bangs on the table. If it was good enough for the Parthenon, it's good enough for John's Avenue. And that was like the biggest soundbite anybody ever gotten. And they've been using that now with developers for years forward. And my attorney gently speaks up. Yeah. My attorney gently speaks up and says, well, it's not the Parthenon. It's a cape, and it's just down the street. Sorry. So, I mean, I can't translate it. You had to be there. I wish we had it on video. You had to be there. Never mind. But that was the comedy. It took 3 months to get through that process.
I am there with you. We have had some run-ins with historical societies, and it is amazing how if they've got about this much to flex, they're going to flex about this much. And it's painful, but it's part of being in this business. You just got to roll with it a little bit. So 3 months is painful because you got holding costs, whatnot, but it is, I'll be honest, for a historical society, it's not the worst I've ever heard. It sounds like dealing with this.
Yeah, no.
Nightmare though. But then, so after you get through historical though, what does it look like? You still got to go through city, like you said, zoning and permitting and whatnot.
Yeah. We still got to go through zoning. So we start that process of going through and getting the variance done, which was once we had historical sign off, which was the hardest part. Zoning was totally cool. They understood it was in the right benefit of the neighborhood, and that was fine. But in the meantime, right, so tax liens are getting put on the property, and the building department is taking massive amounts of complaints. There's an open pool in the back that the neighbors don't want their kids falling in. And of course, it's a big mosquito cesspit. Yeah. And there was still mold growing so much on the inside that was probably trying to come out, and they didn't like that it was unsecured. So we had to spend the seller. One of the perks we brought to the table, right? Seller, listen, don't worry. You want to take any more phone calls? You want to deal with any of this stuff? Medicaid, the city, we'll take on that for you, right? We'll take all that from you. So the city starts find someone that they could call, and we ended up, putting a whole bunch of money in before we closed. We had to, fill in the pool and plywood it and put it all together. We had to resecure the property. We had to basically almost net the whole thing off from the neighbors to make everybody happy and the city happy while we went through the zoning process. But to help us on that same note, and I'm sorry, I'm just sort of going through the details. I remember them.
Yeah.
The Medicaid lien. So they were kind of being hard asses on what they were taking for this property. After all this said and done, I mean, there's a chance this deal wasn't going to go through, right? If Medicaid wanted more than they owed on it or more than what we could pay. Yeah. So in the meantime, we were trying to tell Medicaid what in bad shape this was. We were trying to send them pictures, but just like any, like large institution, they don't really care. They're not there. They're just looking at comparables in the neighborhood, and they want their money, which I appreciate being a government entity, right? Because you and I pay them, and we appreciate them being so responsible with their financials.
That's
but
right.
Anyway.
Right.
Anyway.
Exactly.
So they, right. But they actually, the thing that ultimately helped us at the very end of the day, the city's like, listen, we're going to have to condemn the house. And we're tearing this down anyway, right? They finally just threatened me, like, we're going to just condemn this house. I'm like, guys, that's our plan. Like, please go condemn it. In fact, that will help us.
That's right.
So they did. They go out there, they nail everything to the doors, they shut everything off, and we took a picture of that. We sent that right to our Medicaid rep, and that finally opened all the doors for us that we needed to open, right? So they finally were willing to deal with us, finally willing to settle, finally willing to look at the numbers that were actually in play. They didn't care about the bright colored mold, but they cared about this one document that was on the door.
Exactly, yeah. So you actually, it sounds like you were able to go through a lot of the red tape before you took down the house.
Correct. Oh, we had to. Yeah, they wouldn't let us even pull it up here. They don't even let you demolish or do anything until you get it all cleared for what you want to do.
And did you go through the historical society too before you actually purchased the house? That's huge.
Yes.
That's
correct.
Huge,
yes.
Because it's not costing you anything.
Right.
It's just time and effort, right?
Right.
Amazing.
And ultimately, I mean, that's where this probably, I don't know how we're doing on time, but ultimately that was the best part of this deal, is that as we're going through this process, as we're preparing to do this, tear down and new build, lots of times going through it. At the same time, our sign's up in front,
Oh, yeah.
And, ultimately we, a guy drove by the property, local builder in town. He had all the connections that we did not have, right? Historical connections and zoning connections. And we were able to get it all through, but I don't know what they do up here in Boston. There's still a lot of this.
I'm sure.
So maybe there's a good old boy network there that I didn't know about, but he was like, I want this lot and I'm going to pay you, whatever you want for it. And I'm going to build and I'm going to put a new house on it. I'm going to sell it. And I have all the connections in town. And ultimately we were like, are you kidding me? So we don't have to drive 40 minutes, fight with these town departments, and everyone hates us now because we're the evil developer in town, and you'll just take all that from us, and we'll literally double our money. I'm sorry, we didn't have that. We didn't close on the deal yet.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that's what we structured a double close with this gentleman.
Nice.
This builder. So it was very, very, very sweet. Yeah.
So you were buying it for 145. What did he then end up buying it from you for?
He bought it for it was 325.
Dang.
Yeah, he did 325, and we had roughly, let's see, our net profit on the deal ended up being 152. So we had a whole bunch of costs involved with engineering, architecturals, and stuff. But yeah, we're pretty happy. So
That's
and
amazing.
we did what was right with the seller, right? So we took care of her. We structured different types of things with some property sales. They ended up doing okay too. The seller was happy. We were happy. Buyer was happy. The end buyer for him was super happy. They ended up with a beautiful. It was he ended up selling. We had it for like $750 for the resale value, and he ended up getting like $875 for what he did. Wow. So he was happy.
Wow.
Everybody was happy. Happy.
Well, and in your defense, yes, you made $152,000 rip on a wholesale deal, but you did the legwork. You did the kind of the heavy lifting to get it to where somebody could even build on it. So, and you put out money, I'm sure, legal costs and whatnot, probably grease and wheels.
We try not to operate that way here at AA Real Estate, but yes,
right. We would never do that, right? That's amazing. All right, so because I was going to ask you how you funded it, but I don't need to. You didn't have to fund it. That's
right.
Amazing.
We funded a lot of our own little costs were involved. We did have a private lender lined up in case we had to fund it, and that's typically what we do anyway. Like, right, if in case we try to work with end buyers. This one we weren't sexy. We didn't go out to our end buyers list that we have qualified buyers and try to sell it. We were going to do this one ourselves, and it just fell into this buyer.
Yeah.
So we had to line it up as if we were going to take it down in case this buyer didn't perform. So we ended up paying our private lender like a couple grand just to have the funds allocated in case we needed them.
We've done the exact same thing. If their money's kind of sitting there waiting for us to close, and we don't close for some reason, we try to take care of them as well. That makes sense. Keep those private lenders happy, right?
That's it.
So let me ask you a question. What do you do different in your business as a result of kind of going through this process?
That's a great question. Well, being the major shift, which you already went through too, from looking at every single deal as a rehab and tear down into that wholesale territory. It still hurts me a little bit because, if I was going to do property, if I was going to rehab and rebuild it, there's a lot of extra costs and things that I would include. And we also have high overhead. So our offers to our sellers are now, we had to be competitive, right? So we're a little more aggressive. But we know now we have to run it as a wholesale, which is different than running it even as a rehab anymore. And we have to run it so that we know we can sell it to our end buyers and still turn that velocity of capital, but also keep the seller happy at the same time. So I think it's just the analysis. I don't analyze everything now as rehab and tear down. We have 3 other ways we try to analyze it too to see if it makes sense.
Yeah. That makes sense. And once you've flipped enough houses, you realize how much inherent risk there is in flipping. Like maybe I could make $100 grand, or I can take 25 grand today and be on to the next deal.
Or I could lose 250,000 by going through the rehab, and historical stops me.
Or maybe I'm stuck in permitting for the next year. I mean, there's all these what ifs, and once you have deal flow, sometimes just stay in that flow. Just keep churning through those deals and wholesaling them. I mean, I totally get that. Especially if you figure out you can get some big rips. I'm sure up there too, you get some pretty nice rips in Boston just because the price points are higher.
We do, but the competition is super hot up here, right? So we same type of deal. We could if we were in the high end market, but even the high end markets up here, honestly, being in 2019, the high end stalled. Yeah. So anything over $1 million is days on market, price declines, and that's sort of our first indicator, right? That things are starting to change a little bit, and just how you act after that, how to be smart, and how keep it going with the first-time home buyer stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I mean, I think for a lot of folks in our space, making that shift to maybe a higher percentage of wholesale makes a lot of sense right now.
Yeah.
Nick,
sure.
This was awesome, man. Great story. I'm glad it was a happy one when it was all said and done.
Ken, thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. But hey, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, actually, right?
You got it. Yep. I'll be there in Tampa.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Best Deal Ever show, brought to you by BiggerPockets. If you've been energized, entertained, or enlightened by today's show, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Ken Corsini, or check us out online at redbarnhomes.com. And don't forget, one man's best deal ever may be the inspiration you need to create your next best deal. So, hope to see you on the next episode.